Chris, very good to have you on here, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jacob. Nice to be here.
Straight off the bat here, I read that you started with music at the age of 3 with drums. Is that true?
That is true. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. Um, yeah, when it comes to music, do you feel like that's something that just comes naturally to you? Do you feel like that's just something that you're just tapping into really easily?
Well, I mean, music is hard, but I don't think I can't think outside of music. There's no outside of music to me. I just can't. I haven't done anything else. I mean, for better or worse. Um, yeah, music is like it's just was the first thing I did, and then I was really lucky to be encouraged, and my parents got me a drum set. So I've had a good, it was a good situation for me to become a musician. Um, and I just have now at this point, there's no turning back, I suppose.
It was yesterday that was the cutoff, and now there's no going back, right?
Yesterday was the cutoff. No, it was a long time ago. I think I think the cutoff was sort of like probably well, I really fucked up when I after high school, I just didn't think of like doing something like I couldn't think of like what to do outside of music, and I went to college, and first I was a music major at Cal Arts in like 1992, California Institute of the Arts, and I flunked out after a semester, and then I went to UC Santa Cruz. And then I just took I wasn't a music major, but I took a lot of music classes. And my point is, I didn't really like do anything else that could have led to anything real. And then when I like looked for jobs, I did it so half-heartedly and continued to just pour all of my um, time and energy into music. And so I guess I just sort of chose this path, but I chose it in a really kind of passive aggressive to myself way. I just didn't leave any room for anything else, basically. But I did not think about it at all. Like it was just a complete, like, just a automatic response. And had I been a little more clever, I think I might have stopped and thought about it and really asked myself. But that's not my style. I just kind of followed my gut,
Hey, that's
and
good.
here I am.
Do you feel like you would have had this bond with music if it hadn't formed so early? Do you feel like that was just it's just in you?
I don't know. No, I mean, I don't necessarily make that claim. I think it's unknown. I mean, I really don't know how these things work. I think, uh, probably things could have just as easily turned out very differently, I imagine. That's kind of, yeah, I guess that's what I think. I mean, so many random factors are at play. Who knows? But this is the life I'm in. So,
It's pretty good.
I mean, like, it's good and bad. I don't know that it's any better or worse than anything else. I mean, it is very, maybe I would say it is very good. Music as a calling is very good in that, like, really your job is to like be yourself. And I mean that's and yeah, it's just like I mean I think of it as a spiritual calling, and I know a lot of people don't feel that way about the things that they do for work. So, but at the end of the day, it is work too, and there are parts of it that are not spiritual at
Yeah.
all that you have to deal with. So, hey.
When did that become apparent that it was more of a spiritual thing, as well as
Uh,
something that you
Nothing's
enjoy
changed.
doing?
I mean, yeah, nothing's changed since childhood. It's about the same things now as it was then. It's just about this making something out of nothing, and just the joy of making a sound and just getting, getting the reaction from, doing that in this world of other people, and participating in the world that way is still that's why, that's what I was doing as a little kid, trying to, I just wanted to bang on the drums, and I wanted to see what would happen if I did and see what other people, how other people would relate to that, and learning. I just like, yeah, I just wanted to get better, and I just enjoyed it. And that's still my MO.
Did you stick with drums early on, like in maybe high school bands and such? Were you on percussion at that time as well?
By high school, I was switching around. I had started playing guitar, I think around 11. Um, and drums is I feel like drums is it's hard to find drummers in my experience. So I feel like if you play drums, you kind of have an opportunity to, like, you can be in more, you'll get asked to be in more bands, even if you're not good or whatever, even if the style doesn't fit or whatever. Like when I was a kid, just being able to play drums got me into a lot of situations that I don't know if I would have gotten into as a guitarist. Um, so by high school, I was starting to play other stuff, but I was still playing drums. My friends and I had a Black Sabbath cover band that played at lunchtime in high school, and I played drums in that. That was Bill Ward.
Yeah, and that's a difficult role to play.
It was really fun. I loved it.
How does performing live behind a drum kit and performing live with guitar differ for you?
Hmm.
Is there a big difference in between being up on stage
Yeah.
behind both those instruments?
Yeah, um, I don't know if the difference is for me so much, but I do think it's a difference for other people to look at. Like it's just so different to see someone standing than sitting. Um, to play, I approach guitar like a drummer, I think. Um, and in both cases, to be honest, I'm probably most struggling with the vocals is the thing my attention is on the most in a way. I think that was why I switched, because I felt as though I was not gonna fuck up as much as a guitar player as I did. Not that I fucked up, but like as a drummer, I sometimes felt like I wasn't holding it down the way I wanted a drummer to. And also, it was just really hard to sing as well I wasn't happy with how well I was singing. It's really hard to hear vocals as a drummer. For me, it was hard to hear my vocals playing such a loud instrument. And with guitar, it's a little more easy to control, but still a struggle as I'm a very quiet singer. So that was part of the reasoning. But yeah, if I could do both, if I could sing and play drums better, I would probably continue to play drums and sing. I'm I'm partial to the drums. Yeah, it's just the most fun, and I feel like it kind of shapes the music the most. I love being the drummer and leading the band from the drum set. But yeah, I like it all. I only play drums, bass, guitar, and keyboard, and not keyboard, not very well.
Do you feel like there are limitations with certain instruments, or do you feel like there's always a way around these supposed limitations that you could express an idea fully, no matter what the instrument you're
Mm.
playing on is?
I mean, I think everything has its limitations. Beyond just instruments and music and stuff. I think as an outlook on life, I see like every situation has its limits. But within that, there's an infinite amount you can do. So the answer is yes. Yes, there are a lot of limitations. Guitar is extremely limiting. You can, depending on the tuning, you can only reach certain notes. There's a math, I don't know what the mathematical formula is, but like there's only so many notes you can play at the same time. Um, you're limited by a lot. But then, yeah, I think that's the fun of music. Or anything really. Um, you know, the limitations are often the inspiration for what we do. I'm sure your podcast is the same.
Every week,
There's so
and
many.
everybody should go back and listen to all the other ones and see how I've explored those limitations further.
Yeah.
Chris, I know that you listen every week, so I'm not telling that to you. But these other people who haven't listened to all 200 some odd before this one, who were some early influences for you in music?
I mean, the kid across the street, Michael Walker was his name, played drums, and I think that was the reason I started playing drums. I just thought he was cool. I just wanted to be like this, my older friend across the street. Um, I was, I think, I'm trying to remember where, I mean, um, there was a lot of music around me as a kid in a way. I mean, my dad worked in the music business. So like, and also just being, just like an American kid in the 70s, pop culture, I think the things that inspired me were like, you know, first it was this movie, this Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the movie, uh, starring the Bee Gees and Aerosmith and forget who else is in there. Olivia Newton-John, maybe. I can't remember. I
That sounds
rarely,
right.
but it was like this all-star Beatles tribute. I think I was really into that as a kid. I was into that movie and then got into the Beatles. Um, and soon trying to remember, like I remember like that same kid that played the drums across the street. He liked he was playing that song Whip It by Devo on this on a boombox. And I got really into super into Devo. Um, whatever year when Whip It came out, um, I became obsessed with Devo. And my dad bought me a bunch of Devo cassettes. So those were really big influences on me as a kid. Those are the earliest ones I can remember, I think.
Some good influences. And Devo's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, they bring a lot of different stuff together and very ahead of their time and great musicianship, great songwriting,
Yeah.
very interesting cultural statement, I guess, for its
Yeah.
time. I'm still a fan. I got to meet Mark Mothersbaugh one time, and it was just one of the great thrills of my life. He was very
Yeah.
nice to me. He bought my record.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
he was friends with Parquet Courts, and I was opening for Parquet Courts, and he was in there. He was in the dressing room, and I just started chatting him up, and he was super cool to me.
Yeah.
Thanks
How do
about it.
you how do you feel about people in the dressing room or the green room before a show? Do you like to be communicating with people before you go up and perform, or you kind of like that time to be kind of your own and getting into the swing of things?
Yeah, I try not to be. I don't have a formula about it. I guess some combo of socializing and quiet time. I'm often very worried about losing my voice.
Mm,
If I talk too much, sometimes I don't sing as well. So that's the only concern. But I mean, I love to be around my friends and mostly I like to I think right before we play, I want to just get get psyched up and do a few jumping jacks maybe or do my vocal warm-ups, play a little guitar. That's my regimen.
it's good. I think that's a good way to start anything. Get the
Yeah.
get the blood moving in that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to Parquet Courts as well. They're just such an amazing group.
Cool band. Yeah. They're great.
A little bit of Devo, a little bit in there.
Yeah, they're big fans.
If you ask me, yeah, there's some
Mhm.
hints of it in there.
Yeah, I think they might have done some collabing with Mother's Bow, possibly.
Oh yeah,
Not sure.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And for those of you who haven't listened to the Sean Yeaton interview, please go back and listen to that. He's a tremendous musician,
Mm,
and what he did on bass for all those songs of Parquet Court's discography is just amazing.
mm,
Really good playing on there.
mm.
Do you feel like these people like Devo, for instance, impacted the way that you went on to create music, or at least for a time?
Yeah, for sure. Um, I mean, Devo, I'm trying to think. I mean, trying to think what the elements are there. I mean, I like Devo. I mean, I think that the impact maybe has been that, I mean, first of all, I love just the sounds themselves. I love the synthesizers. The palette of Devo's music is something that I guess I haven't actually, I mean, I probably have not strayed very far from, you know, electric guitars, drums, and synthesizers. But I think the way that the way that they synthesized a number of different aesthetics, sort of um, bringing classic. bringing like sort of rock riffs and kind of classic songwriting into a very sort of like what's the word? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure everybody, if you're familiar with Devo, you know what I'm talking about. They're they're it's a very there's like a lot of different levels to it where they're 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 relating to like a lot of different histories. They're relating to, rock and roll and R&B and R&B and early rock and roll. They're this like reaction to sort of like krautrock and the sort of hippie milieu that they came from, the sort of rejection of that, and then they have this dystopian futuristic element. I don't know. Yeah, I can. I mean, I'm sure all that kind of worked into my music, um, but
Those are some elements that stuck out to you from Devo
yeah, I think
specifically.
that's what I'm remembering. I mean, to be honest, I have not listened to Devo in a long time, um, but yeah, like they definitely like made a big impact on me, and like I think other things as I discovered them kind of related back to Devo for me. Like for instance, I mean, like I didn't know the relationship between Devo and Raymond Scott. If people are hip to Raymond Scott, I'm like became a huge fan of these Raymond Scott electronic experiments that he did, and then when I learned that Mark Mothersbaugh was like collecting all of his old gear and sort of helping, with his legacy, it was like, oh yeah, of course, that makes perfect sense. And like for instance, I didn't know that Devo recorded with Connie Plank in Germany. And then, but just like when I was just getting into krautrock as a young person, it all made sense immediately. And I recognized some of those sounds are just like, oh yeah, this is that cool sound. What like, I don't know what this is, but the through line is like very specific and um, you can, without even knowing it, you can connect all those things. So everything comes from a time and place, like there are real conditions that music comes out of. So
That's well said. That's a good way to put it, Chris. I
I mean,
like that.
it's obvious, but sometimes we forget. Like, I mean, I'm not like I do believe in people having new ideas, I guess, or ingenuity or whatever, but only up to a point. I really think people are sort of just these, you know, we're sort of dumb. I mean, we're just we're conduits in some way of this life that is inventing itself outside of our conscious brains, and I think I find that inspiring and also a relief to just be like, I don't have to be a genius. I don't think people are geniuses per se. I think people um can be in the can be like in really productive conditions and can be allowed. I think music itself flourishes when it is allowed to. You know what I mean?
Right,
Those
right.
conditions are very particular, or they're often slipping away, but music really wants to exist and wants to be really good and interesting and different and varied. And it's if people just let it, it will be great.
And that's gonna go on a shirt. You give me a lot of good quotes today, Chris. I enjoy it. Going back to to these college years of leaving Cal Arts and going to you said UC Santa Cruz,
Went to
right?
UC Santa Cruz, yeah.
And
University of California.
that's the Slugs, right? They're
That's
there.
yeah.
Okay, cool. Just making sure that I'm on the up and up about mascots in
Yeah.
different colleges
Are
around
you where are you coming from, bud? Where you live?
Orange County.
Oh, okay, okay. Cali
So
boy.
yeah, so was it around that time of changing schools and stuff that the curtains makes the appearance in
No,
your
no, that was
music?
later. I think I was in my late 20s or mid to late 20s when I started doing the curtains proper. I mean I was doing trying to remember. In college, I was not really composing music. I was more like into improvised music. And then for the most part. And then the curtains kind of came out of like sort of trying to structure improvisation a little bit and making these graphic scores and stuff. Um, and then when I moved up to Oakland, after school, some years after school. I stayed in Santa Cruz for a couple of years and I worked at this record store called Streetlight Records that's still there. And I moved up to Oakland and then I kind of started doing the curtains that year. So that would be probably like 2000. Um, Trevor Shimizu and me and the first drummer of the curtains is this guy, Jordan Dalrymple, and who worked at Amoeba with me. I worked at Amoeba in Berkeley. And then the curtains went through a lot of different phases. Um, but it came out of kind of like 4-track experiments and trying to kind of like trying to like move out of improvised music. So
Was there a goal that you're trying to step into from leaving that, entering something else, or was it just kind of
it was just the only thing that I felt like I could do at the time. I mean, I didn't feel like I wasn't like singing and um it was kind of just like actually, I took a year off. I think I didn't really make any music in the year of like 99 or 98. I remember right. 99, I think. I was working the record store and I just became so like I just couldn't I don't know, I just was not feeling inspired. I sort of stopped playing and I also yeah, it was just kind of like I was going through a big change because I kind of left the group of people that I was playing with in Santa Cruz, which was more improvisation and stuff and I was kind of like I had not really embraced the idea of composing tunes and teaching them to people and having them play being, I think I sort of thought that was too controlling or something. I had some hang up about being a composer in that way. So it was kind of a year of like sort of coming to terms with like, okay, well, this is like the only thing I actually feel like I can do that I could that I might possibly have some inspiration to do. Because as an improviser, I just felt like I was not that good of an improviser. I was never happy with I'm very unfortunately, I'm a bit more like goal goal driven than process, or at least at that time the process of improvising was what I enjoyed, but not really the result. And so kind of coming out of that, had to embrace a little bit more of the idea of like stopping and revising and becoming more of a writer, composer or whatever. So
yeah.
that's where the curtains came from. It was the only thing I could do, really. I was not skilled enough to do any other kind of music. If I had in my dream, I probably wished I was like doing a different kind of music, but that was like the thing I could do. So I was trying to embrace my limitations.
Do you feel like in hindsight that was a good band to get you back into the swing of things musically, just in general, that was a good
Yeah, it
stepping
was.
stone?
Yeah, it was because I like me and Trevor had a really nice like I mean he was just we were buddies and it was just like he wasn't the kind of person that was like I need to write, songs too. Like he was kind of like he was into just helping me play my songs. He had ideas too and he really added a lot, but it wasn't like I didn't feel like I was making someone do something they didn't want to do. He was down with, learning some my little songs and we just, it was a fun it was a fun band. And and then we were joined by Jamie Peterson on drums and we were all friends already too. So that was really it was a social thing as well.
And had you made any music that sounded like that? And I don't know what the term would be to describe that sound. But had you been making music like you were making music in the
Yeah,
curtains
a
before?
little bit. I mean, maybe superficially. Like, I was in a band. I was playing drums in a band in my Santa Cruz days. That probably we put out one single. It was called Saint Joseph, and then we had like a lot of different names, but the single is called Saint Joseph and the Abandoned Food. Um, it's just one 7-inch out there. I think it's on YouTube if people want to check it out. We were very inspired by no wave, kind of actually like Chicago kind of second generation no wave kind of stuff. We were really into Beefheart, and then we were really into all this like skin graft kind of scrunky guitar stuff. We were really into US Maple and it's kind of the fall and stuff like that. We're kind of coming out of that kind of deconstructed rock tradition. So in some ways, I think that maybe might resemble the early curtains a little bit in terms of not really using harmony in the traditional way. It was not really chords based music. It was very linearly single lines and very beefhearty, beefheartish. So the Curtains was kind of coming out of that a little bit, but blending that with I was really at the time I was getting really into like um, kind of third stream, quote unquote, jazz and West Coast jazz, and I was always a really big fan of like Ornette and stuff. So I was really into trying to write these kind of folky, and Albert Eiler too as well. So I was writing just very simple melodies that I thought could be sort of like the heads of jazz tunes, but then we didn't actually improvise. We would just play these sort of over-determined, simple, but sort of like they went on a little too long kind of melodies in unison. That was kind of the concept of the Curtains. And I was really into the Shags as well. So I was kind of like trying to bring together the Shags, um, this kind of cool jazz, like um, Chico Hamilton, the Shags, Harry Pussy, and Beefheart or something. That was the
That
inspiration for the
that's a
first.
good mixture. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I don't know if it, you know, I don't know if it is exactly that, but I feel like I felt like that was pretty much, I mean, when I describe it that way, I'm like, yeah, I think I think it was kind of like that.
Were you still performing with the Curtains when you joined Deerhoof? Was that kind of did that happen around the same time, or at least there was a break of some sort during that time with the Curtains that you joined Deerhoof?
Yeah, actually, if I remember correctly, Deerhoof joined the Curtains before I joined Deerhoof. Greg and Satomi joined the Curtains. Deerhoof was on hiatus because John Dietrich went to Europe for a couple months. So Greg and Satomi they couldn't do Deerhoof, so I um sneakily coerced them into joining the Curtains. And then um after that, then I started playing music with, or maybe even before that, John Dietrich and I had a thing called Natural Dreamers and Jay Polici as well. And I forget the order, but I joined Deerhoof. When I joined Deerhoof, I was still kind of doing the curtain. I was still doing the curtains. Um, and but yeah, I had already been playing music with them in a couple of different scenarios before I joined Deerhoof. So it was kind of a incestuous. It was a pool of different projects that were all the same 4 or 5 people, 6 people.
And then obviously eventually you ended up joining Deerhoof. What year we're talking about? That like 2002, right?
I think too, and I don't think I had like they were still working on the Reveille album when I joined, and I didn't play on that record, but I think I joined before it came out, and then toured with them when that came out. So that must have been 2002,
Okay.
and then I left in 2006, I want to say, or five, six probably.
Did you feel any trepidation about joining that group?
I mean, luckily I didn't have trepidation. I mean, luckily I didn't think of it that way. And I mean, looking back on it now, I'm like, I certainly could have felt intimidated but no, I mean, to me, it was just like, I was, I was such a fan of their music. And just as a fan, I just so eagerly wanted to do anything connected to it. I just wanted to be a part of it somehow. I didn't feel fear at all. I was just, you know, I was just full of joy because um, the coolest band in the world to me invited me to play with them. And I just was like, luckily, I didn't think second guess it or get scared. I was just, honestly, I just was felt really lucky and enjoyed their company and just wanted to be part of it. So it was a real thrill for me. I mean, when I joined, I wasn't really doing that much. I mean, I joined as the keyboard player because I had an analog keyboard, and I think they had some parts on their records, keyboard parts, that they just needed someone to just play some melodies. So it was like my role was pretty simple when I first joined. And then soon after it was like, oh, well, maybe we could do more with with you on guitar as well and have these double guitar parts. So then I switched to guitar, um, but yeah, it was just fun to join.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And this was in Oakland, right? Or wait, when while you were in Oakland,
I
yes.
was living in Oakland at the time. Yeah. I believe. Yeah. And then I was living in San Francisco as well some of that time too. But when I lived in San Francisco, my rent was $180 a month.
It's pretty steep.
And it's, I mean, that was a good deal even for that time. But um, yeah, I was waiting tables and doing, I was working. Actually, I think all of us except for Satomi had had like temp, like office temp jobs. That was like, that was the era of like temping among people I knew, like musicians and stuff. Satomi worked for a magazine, and if I'm remembering correctly, but yeah, and then I started waiting tables and stuff. But yeah, we had all kinds of jobs.
Yeah, was there a number of, I mean, besides the record store, did you hold a number of odd jobs here and there throughout these early years
Yeah,
of
I mean, not just the early years. I mean, well, and I've been doing nowadays. I'm living by like doing like recording, like engineering and producing for people, um, and my own music a little bit, but mostly working on other people's music. And I've been doing this for like maybe 10, almost 10 years now. But before that, so I'm 49. I'm about to turn 50, March 1st, everybody. I don't know when this will air, but
No, this will air well before that. So if you
okay.
didn't get
Wish me happy
any,
birthday on March 1st. Um, but my point was, yeah, a lot of odd jobs until age 40 or something, I think. I mean, just, you know, anything, whatever was the easiest, highest, most money in the shortest amount of time, easiest, whatever allowed me to continue doing music, really. I worked on a farm. I watered plants in office buildings, a lot of food service. Uh, I worked in a laundromat, delivered food, all kinds of, really not
yeah,
fun stuff. But
what was the strangest job you ever held, or just like the strangest experience
okay.
that you came across with your time at a
Um,
certain job?
I mean, sometimes the plant watering job could be a little strange because people either pretend that you're not a human being, like you're not, you're like you're part of the furniture or something, or they are like you're in their office with them alone and suddenly they want to tell you all of their life story and you're just like trapped in there with your watering can.
I don't know why I thought that when you said that initially, I thought that you were coming in after hours, after business hours
No,
to do this.
no, it was all, yeah, it was during business hours, and it would be like going to these crazy like corporate headquarters. It'd be like, on the 50th floor at the Wells Fargo account, and be just like all this weird office drama and you're just a fly on the wall. It was interesting,
Yeah.
but sometimes could be a little weird.
Were you devoting most of the time that you weren't working to working on music uh with Deerhoof at that time when when you weren't watering plants and getting into office politics and this sort of a
Yeah. Um, when I was in Deerhoof, um, well, I mean, for part of the time, some of the time I was, working on other projects as well, like the Curtains and Natural Dreamers. Um, I, yeah, I mean, there was a part of Deerhoof also where we quit our jobs. Like the last year I was in it, I think, um, we began to leave our day jobs. Um, and then when I left Deerhoof, I had to go back to day jobs. I worked at a plant nursery. Um,
so not so much getting out there in the offices, but just staying at your own headquarters, not going out and watering as much.
the plant nursery was a retail plant nursery, so like
So kind
um,
of mixing
taking
both
care
of
a
them
little bit
together.
of both. Yeah, I would. It was a they would we sold Christmas trees and pumpkins on Halloween, and yeah, but no, I mean, was I doing mostly Deerhoof? I mean, I don't know. There was a point when Deerhoof was like full time.
Hmm.
Um, that was very intense. Like the last record we made was when we were like full time. Um, but before that, yeah, I was doing other stuff too.
Right
Um,
on.
yeah.
Now the first album that you worked on with them was Apple O, correct?
Yeah, that sounds right. Mhm.
Yeah, what was working on that album with them like kind of bring brought into the fold of a writing process like that?
Um, I'm trying to remember. I mean, it was all the songs were written differently. There were some that were like collaborative, that were band kind of songs, and some that were ones that people just brought in. I'm trying to think. I barely remember the writing process. I mean, I remember that song Panda is on that record, and I remember that came about like during practice. I had this riff, and we just Satomi added some things to it. It was kind of spontaneous. Um, everybody had ideas, and it was really fun. I mean, to be brought into a collaborative thing like that. I mean, I had a lot of trust in them, the three of them as musicians, and it was very um democratic, I suppose. They operate really very like much as a collective still, I think. Um, and yeah, the recording of the album, we wrote the songs, we played them on tour, and then when we got home, we booked our friend Jay, who was also a Natural Dreamers. He worked in the studio, him and his brother Ian worked at the studio called the Music Annex in Palo Alto. That he got us in like late at night. We went in there late, in the middle of the night, and I forget if I don't think we even. I think we didn't even pay. I think he snuck us in basically. I mean, I think prior to that, I don't know. I can't speak to all of Deerhoof's records before that, but I mean, my understanding was that I don't think they ever really had a budget to do anything. It was always home recording or sneaking into studios or whatever. So I mean, that was what things were. I mean, nobody we knew really paid money to do those things. It was always everything was always on no budget. Um, we recorded all the basic tracks in one night from probably like 10 p.m. until like 8 in the morning. And then I think then we did overdubs on our own. I'm assuming Greg and Satomi probably recorded all the vocals at home. I don't know if I was there for that part, but um so yeah, it was kind of like a mostly live record, if
Very
I remember
nice.
correctly.
Yeah, do you feel like the way that they operated around writing and performing and stuff, do you think that some of those aspects rubbed off on you, and you kind
Hmm.
of took influence from how
Yeah,
they were doing
absolutely.
stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they were my teachers, really. I had never been in like a proper. I'd been in bands, but never a band that was touring really and operating at that level of like seriousness, I suppose. And yeah, I mean, they taught me a lot. I mean, um, yeah, I mean, I think of them all the time, and I'm sure I emulate some of the good and bad of that band. Hopefully, mostly the good. And I mean, I think there was a lot of good. I really was grateful for that experience. They were very kind um, mentors to me, really. I mean, they're a couple years older than me, and I felt like, I mean, I learned a lot about recording from them. I mean, I was doing a lot of recording before that. I was a home recorder since I was a little kid, but um, I learned a lot of technical things from them. And, I would not have started to use Pro Tools, I'm sure, and computers really if it wasn't for them. Um, and just like, how to be in the world and how to get to it, how to book a tour and how to like show up and play and um how to relate to your bandmates. Um, so yeah, I was very grateful for that experience.
Yeah. Was it was the decision to leave difficult for you when it was time
It took
to
a
go?
long time. I mean, it was a long time coming. I think once I made the decision, it wasn't that hard. I mean, the repercussions of it were much harder afterwards, I would say. I mean, A, I will always be compared with Deerhoof. I will always be mentioned in context of Deerhoof. And I've embraced that. I don't think, I mean, that's something I'm proud of, but I also think that's been a challenge for me. And the repercussions of it financially, like having to not getting to like make a living from music after having a year of making a living from music was, and I mean, this was also coinciding with the rise of internet of streaming, so that the economy really changed around that time too. So it was kind of a double whammy, but uh, I was writing new music that I just wanted to do a different way, and that was it. It felt like a pretty natural decision. I mean, I don't have any regrets, um, and but yeah, it was very complicated, and I think it took me years to kind of I'm sure I'll always be sort of sorting that out. That was a very active time for me, very intense, formative time. And then, but I mean, luckily I keep doing music and I continue to have these really intense formative periods. I mean, this past couple of months of touring has been very intense as well. And making my last record. I mean, I think every activity I try to look at it like it's a chance to grow. And Deerhoof was a really big one for sure for me.
Did you get involved with some other bands or projects immediately after leaving Deerhoof?
Yeah,
Or
I was actually, I kind of started doing stuff with Cass McCombs, I think before I even left Deerhoof. Um, and I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I mean, I think the first big, I think I did a bunch of touring with Cass that year right after I left. And then um, I had started collaborating with Nadel Teresi, who I started the band Cryptacize with, right shortly, not too long after that. Um, and I did a tour with, I'm trying to remember if, I guess White Magic was later on. Um, yeah, I think I was mostly just, yeah, it was the cast stuff. And then I was getting going on the Curtains Calamity album I was already writing and recording that before I even left Deerhoof. So
there's a lot of stuff going on at that time.
yeah, I mean, everybody always had a bunch of different things at the cooking at the same time. I mean, I remember, like me and John had another Natural Dreamers thing that we were working on with Jay, and Greg was doing, I mean, and Satomi, everybody had a lot of different projects and stuff. So I'm sure I was doing other things concurrently, but right after Deerhoof, the first thing I threw myself into was that Curtains record, and then touring for that, and then starting Cryptacize shortly after that.
Very nice. When did you get started on your solo stuff, your solo project under your own name?
Um, well, that Curtains record, Calamity, was kind of like, in many ways, was like a solo record. I mean, I played everything except for the trombone, and then there were some guest vocalists and stuff. But that was sort of like, in a way, that was the origin of my solo stuff. And then the first solo record, I began recording it in like 2000, like 10, I would say, or 9, probably 10. But when I was recording that, like I was thinking that I was going to call that the Curtains. Um, and so it's kind of it's a gray area between the Curtains and the solo stuff. But that was, yeah, so that record came out 2012. Um, but yeah, the solo stuff was just an outgrowth of what have always done, which is, four tracking and demoing, and the demos sort of just become the actual thing.
Yeah, kind of know natural progression
Yeah.
of it.
Hmm.
How often are you letting go and kind of letting an idea or a song for an idea evolve on its own and see where it wants to go?
How often? Whenever I'm writing music is always like that. I mean, it's it's always letting the song do what it wants to do, which, or I don't know. Yeah, it's just like kind of, yeah, letting my letting the ideas, letting them form.
I gotta tell you, Chris, that's a good answer there. That's a good answer.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, I mean, you don't have to go.
no, I mean, what do you want me to do? That's a good answer. I gotta call it as I see it. That's a good answer.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so that first album was Overgrown Path, correct?
Mhm.
That was the first one.
Yep.
Um, and that was initially something else, and then they kind of it kind of merged itself
Well, it was
into.
it was just called. I was sending it out to labels trying to find someone to put it out, and I was saying, "Hey, would you like to put out this album by the Curtain?" I was calling it the Curtains, and no label except for Captured Tracks even had any interest at all. And Captured Tracks said, "We would put it out if you, but it has to be called something else. It can't be called the Curtains because they had this policy of not releasing. They wanted to have all their artists be like joining them with their debut record. They wanted to, they didn't quote, they supposedly did not release music by artists who had already released things. I think there's some exceptions to that, but that at the time was their basic um, policy. So Mike Sniper said, he's the owner of Capture Tracks, said, why don't you just call it, Chris Cohen and just be a solo person? And I kind of resisted for a while, but then eventually I just was like, that's fine. I don't care. Like I actually, at that point, I just was like, let me just follow the path of least resistance. And I think he made a good case for it because he said, well, if you do this, then, everything you do from now on, you can collaborate with people, you can do whatever. It'll always be Chris Cohen. No one can take that away from you, et cetera. And I think that sort of appealed to me after the sort of identity crisis of Deerhoof, The Curtains, Cryptacize, Natural Dreamers. It was just like, okay, this is the simplest. I mean, in many ways, my music career, I have probably shot myself in the foot professionally by changing projects so many times, changing names, waiting so long between releases. Like, had I always just been Chris Cohen, I mean, who knows? Maybe things would have been easier, but so that made sense to me. And I think I've just continued that, even though I'm not wild about my name being my moniker, but it's honest, if nothing else.
I think that's just about as honest as you could be.
Yeah. I mean, although Cohen is not even my real last name, it sometimes feels arbitrary, but Cohen was like changed. My ancestors changed it when they came to Ellis Island. So I don't feel a huge connection to my name, but
Um, Yet, so that never came across your desk though, or you never thought about ever just going under your own name until that
no,
conversation.
I mean, it was really not. I mean, this sounds lame, but I mean, it was not done that much in my world. If you're like, I thought of myself as kind of a post-punk DIY person, and it just was like, I mean, solo prod, doing anything under your name just wasn't that cool. Being a singer-songwriter is not, I still think it's not that cool, honestly. I mean, I'm a band person. I'm more of a rock person, I like to think, than a singer-songwriter. Although it's fine. I'm totally like I accept all labels, singer-songwriter is fine. And it's true. It is kind of what I do, but not in the sense of like I don't think of my songwriting practice as like you know, it's not like a words are not necessarily primary. Um, it's not about like a song that is an ideal that can be executed um, a million different ways. It's very much about the actual execution itself and the arrangement. Um, uh, so I guess I think the singer-songwriter ought to write a song that is like a perfect song that anyone can play and it holds its identity. And I'm not sure that my songs, at least they don't always do that. Sometimes they do that, but that's one reason that it didn't occur to me to use my name before, it just wasn't done. It was just, even if in my era, even if you were going to be a singer-songwriter, you would have a moniker like, the Microphones or Cassie Tone for the Painfully Alone, or I'm sure there's a lot of other examples. Both are cool, like it's fine. I mean, I'm fine with using my name. I don't like, I just feel like if the music is good, nobody actually really cares what it's called up to a point. I mean, unless it's not something that like hurts people's feelings or really sticks in your craw. If it's just like something kind of passable, if your music is good, then it's just the music itself is the identity, not the name for me. So I think anything is fine. And for me, like the Curtains was like, in some ways, I mean, I was not like thinking of myself as a singer-songwriter, but because I was the main writer of the Curtains, and it was kind of like, I mean, at different times to varying degrees, but it was more or less like my project. I was always kind of the boss of the Curtains. And so the Curtains was like one of those kind of names for it was a pseudonym for a, a bashful like dictator persona.
So the first album was Evergrown Path.
Mhm.
Uh yeah, what was putting that album together like for you?
It was really nice because I was really tired of collaborating with people, and I was just like really in my own world and not having to not having to talk about anything with anyone was really liberating for me. Um, I was going through, Nadell and I had been a couple and we had just broken up, and I was kind of, I think the process of making that record was sort of like me just kind of reestablishing finding my identity again after being sort of lost in a relationship. And um it was I was um just kind of relishing being, you know, taking my time and not having to finish something and not having to Cryptacize had a lot of pressure to make money. I mean, it's hard to believe because we were not a very commercial. I don't think we were a very commercial band, but we were really trying to make a living at music, and that was very frustrating. It was like doing my thing. I was just like, okay, this is not going to be a professional endeavor. This is just purely, art, and I'm just going to like go for. I was trying to get back to my roots in progressive rock. I wanted to write stuff sort of akin to like what I was into in high school, which was like the Soft Machine and um just kind of wanted to write long, hard to play stuff that I couldn't have done in Cryptacize or in Deerhoof probably too. Like just kind of embracing that. And then try to remember I was playing drums with White Magic, the band Mirabellotti for a while, just for one tour, but her music was a big influence on me as well. And I think when I was working on that record, I was kind of like channeling some of her melodic ideas. And yeah, I was just synthesizing a lot of different stuff that was influenced by at that time.
And so that one and the second one, I also read that those are kind of like complementary to each other.
Yeah,
Overgrown
totally.
Path and As If Apart, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think I thought of my three Capture Tracks albums as like a piece, being of a piece. Kind of like I guess I think of it as sort of like um they're mostly all overdub albums, and I thought like, okay, I'm gonna just take this as far as I can take it. And then my last one was kind of breaking away from that and getting more into live recording of a band and collaboration. So I think of those three records as kind of a piece, yeah. And they were all made in LA too. I mean, I guess the fourth one was too, but yeah, something of a piece.
Uh, yeah, and you largely worked on the at least the first two by yourself, right?
Yeah, the first two all by myself, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I had some lyrical collaborators, but
But for the most part, it was kind of a solo
yeah, I played everything.
endeavor, yeah,
Mhm.
or experience.
Yeah.
Um, did you find that working on both those or the first two albums by yourself kind of expanded your creativity in a different way or kind of made you maneuver in a different way?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that's always evolving, but I think that those, having to do them by myself. I mean, the Curtains one was like all by myself too, the Calamity record. It's every time I mean, every record really, even if it's collaborative, there's always like, um, yeah, for me, I have to hone new chops to do things usually. I'm usually finding, oh, there's something that I'm like, I'm not good at this. I need to like spend a while really, hashing something out. It's building up your chops, I guess.
Mhm.
So like recording chops or playing chops. Um, definitely I had to I'm trying to remember like what I mean, uh, just getting sounds and mixing was really like, I mean, I remember just being at my wit's end trying to finish mixing, as if apart. I remember just thinking like, I don't even know if I know how to mix anymore. Like it was really, there was some technical, really some things for me that were really outside of my technical ability that I was trying to do. In the end, it came together. I got some big help from Greg Saunier from Deerhoof, who helped me. he mastered that record, and honestly, like he some of the mixing as well, like he kind of at the very end there, he like really taught me a few little things that have been very helpful. Um, I just feel like I'm always doing things that I don't know how to do. I mean, still, I mean, that's part of the fun of it for me. I think that's why I'm doing music is like I'm always just operating a little bit outside of my ability. And I think if you're not doing that, it's not as fun. And then afterwards you get to be like, cool, like I now I can do this new thing. And it's like that's part of the fun of it for me. So
Very nice.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, you were kind of working with more people on that the third, which is the self-titled album, right?
Yeah. It was also mostly, I mean, yeah, I brought in there was one song that I did like I tracked it live with Dave and Gavan on bass and Jay Israelson playing keys. And I think Jay did a few different keyboard overdubs if I'm remembering correctly. And then Jay helped me um I knew that I wanted to have some saxophone, and I asked this amazing saxophone player who lives in the Bay Area named Casey Knudsen to play on it. And then Jay kind of helped me figure out, he was there helping guide me as a producer. Him and Casey, and I mean, Casey just improvised. I think two songs were like, she just did solos on, and then one song called No Time to Say Goodbye. Jay and Casey kind of together sort of came up with a horn arrangement where we overdubbed her, and then she did some soloing over that as well. So those were like kind of the beginning. Those were like the first collaborations that I had done on my solo project. But the rest of the record is like the other two, where it's just me doing all the rhythm tracks and everything by myself. So that was sort of a transition into the fourth one, which was much more collaborative.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was how I'd never done that before, and I just wasn't sure if I was going to be comfortable having instruments on the record that I didn't play myself or that I didn't know how to play. I've always been very wary of like putting strings and horns and things that I didn't really know the language of. I just kind of felt like I want this to be something where I really um like know the history of and can speak more fluently with. But gradually I've found that when I find people who I really love what they do and trust them, that that is a beautiful thing that I should not be afraid of.
Yeah.
So,
So working on those last two, the self-titled and Paint a Room, did those kind of feel like those had some similarities that those were kind of bonded in some way, like the first two were?
yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think Paint a Room goes a lot further in terms of leaving the aesthetic territory of like um rock music and like electric guitars. There's less electric guitar on there. But yeah, those are kind of yeah, I think they're kind of a piece. I mean, the third record remember I was sort of like discovering that I liked some music that is called that people would call fusion music, or like there's this sort of like era of jazz that I had never really allowed myself to appreciate. And I remember this like some of this Pat Metheny stuff. Just the palette of I was kind of like this actually is really like feeling good to me, and I wanted to bring a little bit of that aesthetic, mostly for sentimental reasons, because I mean, not specifically Pat Metheny, but like there was a certain texture of the music in the mid 80s that I found like just emotionally like connected to the territory of the songs for me, since I was thinking about that time. Um, like Thomas Dolby, uh, Golden Age of Wireless was a big inspiration when I was making the third record. And then Paint a Room, I think, kind of was like, okay, I'm now that I've opened that door, what else is there? And I think Jay Israelson's aesthetic in terms of synthesizers and the kind of parts he likes to play and stuff was a big inspiration. The song Physical Address, I kind of wrote the keyboard parts thinking of Jay, like what would Jay like to play? And he really took it to another level, a lot of those songs. And then bringing Josh Johnson in to arrange a bunch of the songs and Jeff Parker, who arranged one of the songs as well. Um, kind of allowing their sensibility to just be what it was. It fit. I felt like it fit right into my songs, um, and it was not something I didn't really have a big hand in their work. It was something that they really did on without me, and then um, just it fit really well to my ears. So that was kind of a continuation of like, there's some jazz, there's a little bit of jazz aesthetics or just the texture of jazz music in here. I wouldn't call my music jazz at all, of course, but
But there's elements of inspiration that is stemming from
yeah, I
some
mean,
certain points of jazz.
I'm a jazz fan for sure, and I've been very cautious in the way that I draw upon that history in my music because I just don't have the skill or the the history, or just I'm not a part of jazz culture in that way. Um, I can't really solo over changes. I listen to a lot of jazz music, and there was, I guess, mostly for me, my songs, it was a matter of like wanting to extend the harmony in my songs. And as I've been writing, I think over those four records, um, I don't know, want to get too technical, but like, it might be boring if you're not a music person, but
Now get technical. Let's do it. Let's get
and
into
just
it.
just in terms of like extending the harmony, I just found myself writing using thicker and thicker chords, either thicker or less based on, you know, root, fifth, and third. So just kind of like um getting wanting more and more variation harmonically. And then so that kind of led me to like have let a little bit of that jazz fan um side of myself come into the music. So but yeah, I've been sort of cautious about that, I guess. And also, a little bit of improvisation. I mean, there's not very much. Um, I think that improvisation is part of my process, and there's certainly some improvisation on all the records in a way. Um, Guitar solos or some things I'm improvising. But on the third record, there's actually like, okay, there's going to be a guitar solo. There's there's more improvisation, and then Casey Knudsen. I mean, her solos were really like literally like one or two takes, and that was it. So and Josh's solos on the fourth record, you know, that was not something I was going to attempt, but he killed killed the solos on the song. So I was just so pleased.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, Overall, do you view the process of making music as as a collaborative effort, or is it more of a solo thing?
You mean my music?
Yeah. Or how you view music now, at least.
I mean, there's so many kinds of music. I don't think I have one. I don't have a definition. I mean, or a single view. I think all music is unique and comes on its own terms and comes, again, like from a specific time and place, and it's there's no right or wrong for me. I mean, um, but I don't, yeah, like there's nothing wrong with solo. There's nothing wrong with completely collective. Those are all beautiful modes that should be um that are going
Expressed.
to be explored by different people at different times. And yeah, I mean, I my music encompasses a bit of all those, but it does have a lot of the that's a lot of the solo thing, but who knows? I don't know. It's always a
I was
collaboration.
hoping that you would know though, Chris. Dang it. Yeah, okay, so if people aren't super familiar with your work, with your solo work, where would you suggest them to go as a jumping off point that you would say this is a good lead in to what I'm about?
Which of my music?
Which one, yeah, of your music.
I actually think you could start anywhere. I don't think there's anywhere that doesn't I don't feel like represents what I'm about, or any song that doesn't represent what I'm about, luckily.
Or else it wouldn't be
Um,
out there, right?
Kind of, yeah.
Chris, I really appreciate you coming on here, sir. Thank you very, very
Oh,
much.
Thanks for having me, Jacob. I appreciate it. And thank you
Yeah.
everybody who's listening.
Thank you to everybody who listens to this podcast. And but Chris, before I let you go, I got some promo to do here.
Mm.
Chris's music is streaming everywhere. Wherever people get their music, that's where they could find your music, right? You're everywhere. Spotify, Apple, all this good stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Right on. And the merch can be found at the Bandcamp, right? That's the best place to go support you.
Merch actually, I'm not sure. No, I don't buy anything through Bandcamp if you can help it. If you I think if you wanted to support me most directly, come to a show and buy from the merch table. But you could also buy stuff from what, Hardly Arts online store or Captured Tracks, um, in their online stores. That's probably a good way to go. Or go to your local um
Record store.
I hate brick and mortar. I hate saying that phrase, but what do you just go to the record store in your town and buy the record there? And if they don't have it, you could ask them to order it. Those are all great ways. But I mean, Bandcamp, Spotify, these are horrible places. I'm not going to send anyone there.
Okay.
And the merch is, I think, pretty much exclusive. Like, I don't think t-shirts or my songbooks or any of that stuff, I don't think you can get it anywhere. No, I know you can't get it anywhere but at one of my shows. So
Ah, okay.
come to a show. Or you could email me if you want to buy any of those things. Chris Cohen mailing list at gmail.com is my merch contact. Chris Cohen mailing list.
Mailing list at gmail.com.
And I have t-shirts, songbooks. I have a zine that comes with unreleased music from the 90s if you want to hear what I was talking about with my 4-track experimental era. I
Um,
can sell you that stuff.
yeah, everyone can stay up to date with news and shows and tours and all that good stuff by following you on Instagram, right? Is that the
Yeah,
best place?
probably, yeah.
And that's at Criff Cohen
Chris.
on Instagram. That's CHRIFCOHEN. And do we have anything else to promote, Chris, before we cut you loose?
Well, if you're in California, if you're in Southern California, I'm playing at the Lodge Room in LA on Valentine's Day. If you're in Baja California, I'm playing in Tijuana on the 13th. That's going to be really fun. Very excited for that. And on the 15th, I'm playing in Ojai, California at the Deer Lodge, and I'm playing with Tara Jane O'Neill. And all of those shows are recommended. And I'll be coming back. I'll be doing some more stuff later in the year in the fall, do some more touring. And yeah. Oh, and in the summer, I believe I'm going back to Europe. So I can't promote specifically, but I'll be going to Glasgow. And I think if you're in Finland, I'm coming to Finland. Um, and I'm going to Denmark. So Danish people, maybe see you there.
Perfect. And again, yeah, all that good stuff is on the Instagram, and I'm sure you're gonna be promoting it there as well. So
Yes.
yeah, stay up to date with that through there. And Chris, thank you again.
My pleasure. Thanks
Um,
for having me.
yeah, thank you, sir. And I'm gonna stop recording this. I'll talk to you in a minute, okay?
Okay.
All
Okay.
right.